There is a certain breed of chicken, no matter how much you paid me, I would not ever get Icelandic chickens again. The worst breed of chickens. They're absolutely nuts. It took me actually having them for a couple years and then getting other chickens that were not that breed to really see how insane they are. I knew they were insane, but then when you see another chicken that doesn't absolutely bolt, even though they see you every single day. They see you every single day, but every single time you see them, it's like you're gonna murder them, which sometimes you are because there's too many roosters, but for the most part, you're not gonna murder them, and they're crazy. So never get Icelandics unless you plan on never having them stay in, always having them roost in trees, never being able to know where your eggs are. That's Icelandics. So I'm often asked why I choose the type of milk cows that I have, the breeds of milk cows that I have. And so I thought I'd make a video today just talking a little bit about your breed options for choosing a family milk cow, as well as why I chose the milk cows that I have. So I often refer to my milk cows as dairy mutts, and you are going to see why that is in a second when I talk about what the breeds they are and why I chose these dairy mutts. I say it in the most loving way. I love a good mutt. I love a good mutt. And so that's what today's video is going to be about, is just me taking you through why I have the breeds of dairy cows that I do, and why you might want to consider certain breeds for certain traits that you're looking for in your family milk cow. Hey, Missy. Cammy and I haven't worked together for a couple weeks, 2 weeks or so, but today I think I'm going to bring her in. Hey, what are you doing over here? Okay, I have to pay attention when I go through this door. It never goes that well for us. She gets excited. No. To do a little loop. If she goes ahead of me, we have to do a little loop. Good girl. Okay. I walk in first. That's our rule. Good girl. And then we have to go close the door. Come on. Good job. Stop. It's not that easy to film it. There we go. Good girl. Okay. We're going to tie up right here first. So I'm going to tie her right here. Okay, while she is doing that, I'm going to turn the water on for the milk cows. She's got so big this summer. Haven't you, Cammy? You're turning into a real size cow. So Cammy is my beautiful mutt of all mutts. So Cammy is her mom. So her dad is her sire is in Normandy, just through AI. And then her mom is Annabelle, my milk cow, who is half Guernsey, quarter brown Swiss, and quarter Holstein. So Cammy has a little bit of everything in her. She's got 4 different dairy breeds in her. I'm really excited for her. I'm excited to see how the Normandy kind of plays out in everything. She's looking at the dogs. It's good for her to get used to them though, because they're usually around when I'm milking. So I'm excited to see. I love her mom because her mom is super, super hardy, and I'll take you out and show you why I love Annabelle so much. But her mom is super, super hardy. She has really nice hand milking teats, which I feel like Cammy is also going to have really nice hand milking teats. And I'm excited about the Normandy in there because Normandys are supposed to have really good cheese making milk, and so that's why we kind of chose that breed. Zach has experience with Normandys, so we kind of went all in on breeding our cows to Normandys. So actually Tiger is out the door here. I don't want to let him in, but it's okay, girl. You can see him. So Tiger is also half Normandy, different dad, but he the other half of him is mostly brown Swiss. But anyways, we went kind of full in on Normandies just because Zach has the experience with them from his dairy farm back in Wisconsin when he was younger, and he just really loved them. He loved them for just their temperament and for being a really hardy, kind of almost dual purpose. They are dual purpose milk cow. So yeah, I'm excited to have some Normandy genetics in my family milk cows, and it's kind of too soon to tell how that's going to play out, but sorry girl. But yeah, so we're working on that. In a couple years I'll be able to actually, well, in 1 year, so we'll breed her in probably a couple months. We'll breed her, and then she'll calve when she's a little older than 2. We'll breed her at like 16 months, I think. Right now she's 14 months. And then, yeah, then we'll have, you can definitely tell I haven't worked with her for 2 weeks. And then we will have some Normandy genetics in our milk herd, and we'll see how that works. But I'm excited to try it anyways. Zach built hay bale forts for the kids up in the mezzanine so that while I milk, they have somewhere to play. Nice, Dad. Am I milking still? I'll definitely be able to hear them up there. They've been playing up there a lot lately, even though I'm not milking right now. That'll be fun in the winter though. Most of our square bales aren't stored in this barn, they're stored in a different barn. These are just a few that he put up there for easy access. Good girl. Good girl. Oh, sorry. Good girl. What a good girl. Centered. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. We really struggled today because of the dogs, but that's actually really good because I didn't realize that was a struggle point for her. They don't usually walk down with me. Water's all filled up while I was doing that. Overflowed a little bit. Everything's so like rusty and brown because it's the fall. They're mostly eating out of the feeder right now, dry cow feed, because they're both bad. But they wander around and nibble on a few little things in this brown pasture. Hey ladies. So the birds are quite loud out here, but I thought I'd give you guys a little overview of different breeds of milk cows and which ones you might want to choose for your family and your homestead. So one of the most common questions I'm asked when people ask about what milk cow they should buy is what breed of milk cow should I buy? And I often talk to them about individuality of different cows because different cows are very individual. Despite their breeds, you know, breeds definitely put something into their genetics so that they have certain traits, but even within those breeds, there's a lot of difference. You know, you could have a Jersey that has this beautiful cream line and this really amazing production, but you could also have this low producing Jersey that is going to give you less cream because she gives you less milk. So there's a lot of variation between different breeds. So I always say kind of first, number one thing is kind of look at the individual cow before you look at the breeds. But I also think that it's a really good idea to research some of the breeds that are out there because there's a lot of really great ones. I actually did like a chat GPT, whatever it is, the AI thing. I looked up, I just asked it to get me a list of dairy breeds. And so it came with this like ginormous list of dairy breeds. Some of them on there I had never even heard of. I'm sure a lot of them come from like warmer climates that I'm not used to. But just this massive list of dairy breeds. And so I can see why people kind of get overwhelmed with wanting to know which dairy breeds that they should be getting for their lifestyle, for the amount of milk that they want, for the amount of cream that they want, the cheese making that they want to do. So you can really kind of get yourself overwhelmed. So I think to kind of pare down that list when you are looking at what breeds might be good for your homestead, a good idea is to kind of look at what breeds are available in your area, because you might see something on that list that is just like the most amazing breed. You research it, it's so good, but then you start looking to find it and you can't find that breed anywhere in your area. You know, even if you were to drive for miles and miles and miles, you would never find that dairy cow. So I think that it's a good idea to kind of pare down your list first by seeing what's available in your area and then going from there. A lot of times too, dairy cows are they're more prominent in certain areas because of the climate. So some dairy cows just aren't going to do good in colder climates or in warmer climates. So that kind of determines which ones are suitable for you right off the bat. So probably the most common dairy cow breeds that you're going to come across in North America, and this might be different if you live in dairy country. I don't live in dairy country. Like, the closest dairy farm is really far away. It's, 100 kilometers away. I'm in Canada, and then there's not another one for like quite a while. So I don't live in dairy country by any means, whereas if you're living in dairy country, you might have more breeds available for you. But just kind of the most common breeds that you're probably going to sort of come across are going to be Holstein, Jersey, Brown Swiss, Guernsey, Ayrshire, and Dexter would probably be the most common breeds that you're going to kind of find if you're looking on like a marketplace or on some sort of online for sale board, or maybe the board at the feed store, because those still exist. Don't forget about them. They still exist and they're there, and people put their milk cows on there. So check those out. Anyway, so those are the most common ones that you're probably going to see, and those are kind of the ones that I focused on in a blog post that I wrote this week, so you can find the link to that blog post down below. I talked a little bit about the differences between the production of those milk cows and the butter fat of them, a little bit about the differences in size. For example, Dexter is just this tiniest little cow that could just like fit in your pocket. Jerseys are pretty tiny, whereas Holsteins or Brown Swiss, they're this kind of massive cow that is going to take a lot of inputs to be able to feed on your homestead. Once you narrow down what breeds are available to you in your area, it's a good idea to kind of write a wish list of what it is that you want in a milk cow. And I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to get everything on your wish list, but it's a good idea to make sure that you're kind of sorting it into what are my absolutes. I need to have this in my milk cow, or else it's not going to work for our family. For example, if you have a smaller area, or you're buying feed, and so you don't want to be buying like a ton of feed, you might want to go with a smaller stature animal. The trade-off is you're going to get less milk, whereas if you have a lot of good quality feed, you've got a lot of grazing area, maybe you're more equipped to go with a larger animal. It also depends on what you're going to be using the milk for. Are you planning on making cheese? Because if you're planning on making cheese, a Dexter that's only going to give you, 1 to 2 gallons of milk a day maybe isn't going to be something that's going to suit your needs, especially if you have a large family. Whereas if you don't want to have just like gallons of milk, don't go with a Holstein, because they're going to give you, anywhere between like probably 6 and 8 gallons of milk when they're in peak lactation. So kind of looking at the different breeds and how they match the wishes on your list is a good idea, and I really encourage you to kind of write down that wish list so that you know what it is that you want, and when you go into the buying process, you're really clear on what it is that you need in a milk cow. So there's this excitement when you go to buy a milk cow, and you get all excited and you go and you see it and you fall in love with her, and if you haven't done that really clear defining what it is that you want in a milk cow, it would be really easy to buy the wrong one, the one that didn't suit your lifestyle. So being really clear on that from the get-go is really important. Now I want to talk a little bit about those kind of 6 most common dairy cows and the ones that I have experience with. So I don't have experience with Ayrshires or Dexters, but I do have experience with the other 4 actually. And I didn't actually even realize that until I started writing the blog post for this week's blog post, and then I realized, I'm like, man, I've had all 4 of these different dairy cows in some capacity. So I've got a little bit of experience with each one. As I said, different cows are individuals, so they're going to have different like quirks and things that are going to be individual to them, but there is some things that are kind of standard for those breeds that I want to speak to. The first one I want to talk about is Holsteins. So I feel like Holsteins kind of get a bad rap in terms of homestead milk cows. Now, they get a bad rap because I think they don't look as pretty as Jerseys. That's one. And they also tend to be not as hardy as some of the more heritage breed milk cows. Now, when I say that, again, that's very individual to the cow. So we've had a lot of Holsteins on our ranch, actually, because we use them as nanny cows for our ranch. If we've got any orphan beef calves or anything, or usually they're not orphan, very rarely they're orphan. Usually they're just a twin that their mom can't handle. And so we have brought a lot of just Holsteins straight off the dairy farm to our ranch and use them as nanny cows. Now, Holsteins are excellent mothers. For the most part, there was one that we had that wasn't an excellent mother, but other than that, like, you know, they accept all the babies that we give them. They are really excited to finally have babies, especially when they come straight off the dairy farm, because they've never had that opportunity before. So that's something kind of neat about them that I've seen. They're very large statured, so you know, they're gonna take a lot of inputs. They also produce a ton of milk, so you know, it's not uncommon to have Holstein freshen at like 8, even 10 gallons of milk. I've never seen 10, but 8 gallons of milk a day, which is just this massive amount of milk. And it can just be overwhelming if you know, are a smaller family, or if you're just getting into dairy and you just don't want that much milk. That's a lot of milk. Even for me, even if you're making cheese, that's a lot of milk. As far as the milk composition goes, it depends on their diets and what you're feeding them, but they can have decent cream lines. Like, you know, one of ours had a really decent cream line. Like usually you're having probably about 3% in Holstein milk would be butterfat, but I've even seen, you know, like we're not measuring butterfat on our ranch by any means, but I've seen really nice cream lines that kind of almost were as good, maybe not better, but as good as my Jersey's cream line. So it depends on the individual cow and what you're feeding them, but there is that potential there to have a fairly decent cream line. As far as temperament goes, I would say Holsteins are kind of like gentle giants. They never really have too bad of a temperament from my experience. They're pretty just decent animals, and I like a Holstein. I think that they're a good choice for a family milk cow, and especially when you start crossbreeding them. So we have a nanny cow on the ranch. Her name's Two Socks, and I would want to say that she's in her 3rd or 4th lactation now for us on the ranch. She has raised a lot of calves for us. If she's in her 3rd lactation, that means she's raised about 9 calves for us. And she's just keeps her condition so well. She's always just beautiful and shiny. She has a lot of good milk, but she has that hardiness that comes from being a beef cross, and then the production that comes from being a Holstein cross. So there's a lot of potential when you look at crossing a Holstein with something maybe a little bit hardier, because I would probably say that's the #1 kind of complaint with Holsteins would be that one, they just produce too much milk that doesn't have quite enough butterfat for some people, and 2, they just aren't hardy enough. They take a lot of inputs to be able to maintain their body condition. You're probably going to have to feed them grain. You're going to have to give them really good quality feed, because they will milk off their back. And what that saying means is they will put everything into their milk production and nothing into their body condition. So you have to be careful and make sure that you're feeding them what they need to really thrive. The next one on the list is Jerseys. So I've only ever had one Jersey. My very favorite cow, she was a Jersey, Suki. So if you are an OG Cheese from Scratch follower, you remember Suki. She was a darling. I loved her so much. She died a couple years ago now, right before I got my other milk cows, Animal and Brie. I want to say it was 3 years ago. Was it 3 years ago already? I think it was 3 years ago already that she died. Anyways, I love Suki. She had such this good personality. I called her my pocket cow because when I first saw her, because I was used to like Holsteins. She was the first Jersey I ever had. And when I first saw her, I knew Jerseys were tiny in stature, but I was just so shocked at how tiny she was that I could just put her in my pocket. She had Jersey sass, so that's a term. An unofficial term used in the Jersey community is Jersey sass, because Jerseys are sassy, but I like to call it kind of pleasantly naughty. So that's like pleasantly confused from nursing terms. Pleasantly naughty. They don't mean it, but they're a little naughty. And I kind of love it. I love it in a little bit. But yeah, anyways, I love Suki. I loved her temperament. I loved her little Jersey sass, so you do have to kind of contend with that. And she was a really great milk cow. So she produced probably, I would say 4 to 6 gallons at her peak production. She raised a really nice calf on her. She had good butter fat. So like that's what Jerseys are known for. They're known for their amazing butter fat. So they're the butter queens, are the Jerseys. So if you are really wanting to make a ton of butter, a Jersey or a Jersey cross of some sort is a good option for you. They have the highest butter fat of these 6 most common breeds, and maybe the highest butter fat of all. I'm not actually sure, but it's not uncommon for them to have 5 to 6% butter fat, where that Holstein is only going to have about 3%. So 3 to 4% probably for a Holstein. So they have really high butter fat, and so that's really a good reason why people love them. They do take a lot of inputs, so they are kind of a high production breed. Anytime you have a high production breed of anything, they're gonna take a lot of inputs to be able to make sure that they don't milk off their back. So you've got to be making sure that you're feeding them what they need to be able to really maintain that condition while producing how much milk they are producing. My one complaint about the Jersey milk is that it's almost too creamy. I know that sounds crazy, that you might not agree with that, but you almost get like a mouthfeel. So we often would skim some of the cream off of the Jersey milk, which is fine because you want to skim it off, and then you still leave a little bit in there, and then you have butter, and then you have drinking milk. It works. It's like the best of both worlds. But if you leave it in there fully creamy, you can end up with this weird kind of pasty mouth feel afterwards, like because it was just so creamy. It's like drinking straight cream sometimes. So that would be my kind of complaint with Jersey cows, and then just their input, and that's individual to the different cows and stuff. But if they're coming straight off the dairy farm, they were bred for production, they're probably going to take a lot of inputs to maintain on a homestead. And so going for something that's crossed, or has just a little bit of Jersey in it, or maybe getting a homestead Jersey cow that's had a couple generations on a homestead versus on a dairy farm might be a good option for you. But yeah, or just getting the one off the dairy farm, but then making sure that you feed her what she needs so that she's not going to have all sorts of different metabolic problems. And that's actually ultimately what ended up happening. I don't think it was because she was in good condition, but there was all sorts of different factors that led to Suki's death, metabolic disorders being part of it. And then in the end, she actually, a bull broke into her pen. We had already made the decision to call her because she had staph A, and we'd been treating it for months and to no avail. And then a bull broke into her pen and broke her back because she was just so weak from months of being sick. So yeah, you have to baby them. They're not as hardy as some of the other milk cow breeds out there, and I would say they're kind of similar to Holsteins in that manner, where you really do have to baby them and make sure that they're not getting too skinny, and that they're keeping their condition well. Now the next one on the list is Guernsey. So Annabelle, who is grazing over in the corner there, Tammy's mom, is half Guernsey, and so the other half of her is a quarter brown Swiss and a quarter Holstein. So she's not completely Guernsey, but she has some definite Guernsey traits, and one of those traits I would say is her cream line. So Annabelle has the most amazing cream that I have ever seen in a cow. I have a hard time explaining what it is, but it's like her cream line is thinner than most. Like you would look at a jar and be like, oh, there's not a lot of cream on there, but the cream itself is just way thicker, and I end up with like this huge yield from a smaller amount of cream. So it's it's just the way that her fat globules in her cream are. It's super easy to skim because it's just this one giant glob of cream that's kind of on the top of her milk. You throw it in the blender, usually is how I churn my butter, and in a minute I have butter. Like her cream churns so fast, it's crazy. So I love her for her cream, and I also love her for her temperament, which I wouldn't have said when I first got her because she was terrible when I first got her. It took me like months to train her, like 2 months to train her in the milking stall. But once we got through all the bumps and she got into kind of a routine, she just turned into this absolutely amazing milk cow. She has a temperament about her that is very calm, but very kind of, she doesn't care too much about me, which I know it sounds weird, but I actually kind of prefer it. She's not going to come over here while I'm sitting here and like put her head on me or anything like that, whereas Brie, who is walking around here, my brown Swiss, she absolutely would do that. I'm surprised she hasn't right now. So she definitely kind of keeps to herself. If I was going to walk over there, every once in a while she surprises me and lets me scratch her if she's got an itch or something like that, but it's only if it suits her. Otherwise, she's happy to go into the milking stall and stand really nice for milking. She's the cow that I let my kids milk because I know that she's never going to kick. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if something bangs or clangs or anything like that. She's just going to stand there and be calm. And that part of that is age for sure. But I think it also has to do with a little bit of the Guernsey in her. You know, Guernseys are kind of known to be a nice docile cow. And I think that it kind of is a blend between her breed as well as just her individuality. And that's part of the reason that I'm so excited for Cami. It's just, I'm excited for that trait in her that, yeah, she's not going to be this cow that's in my face or anything, but she's got that respect for me. So that I really like that. And I think it's a good trait to have. So Guernseys are kind of, I would say probably a large to mid-size breed. They are going to take a lot of inputs again, but maybe not as much as a Holstein or a Jersey. They have pretty good, decent, they're kind of a mid between a Holstein and a Jersey. I feel like that is a good description of a Guernsey. You know, they're going to have a little bit more production maybe than a Jersey, but they're going to have a little bit less cream. Butterfat than a Guernsey. So they're probably going to be about a 4.5, I would say, percentage for butterfat, which is a very nice cream line. So nothing wrong with that. And I would get another Guernsey. I absolutely would get another Guernsey. I think they're a great milk cow, especially when you cross them in with something. They just get a little bit of a hardiness to them. Okay, and then finally, brown Swiss. So I'm not going to talk too much about Dexters and Ayrshires just because I can't even pronounce the name Ayrshire. I've literally only seen one in my life. There's not very many around here, but there is some. Like if I looked, I could probably find one. Anyways, so brown Swiss are a really great choice for a family milk cow. They are probably about the same size as a Holstein, so they're very big. I would say they're like a Jersey in a Holstein's body, if I had to describe them, or that's how Brie is anyways. So Brie is my brown Swiss. She's also a quarter Jersey, so that could be where that little bit of Jerseyness comes from. But she's pleasantly naughty. I like to describe her as pleasantly naughty because she really is. She kind of gets herself into little situations, except for she's not little, she's giant. So that kind of isn't always good. But anyways, I really enjoy her personality. She's in my pocket cow. She would crawl right into my pocket. She might not fit, but she'd crawl right in. She is hardy, so she's hardy to a point. I still feed her grain to maintain her condition. I don't think I would be able to maintain her body condition during lactation without feeding or supplementing her with grain, and that is individual as well. But they do have, they do produce a lot of milk. So she surprised me as a heifer. She just finished her first lactation, and she was producing close to 3 gallons all the way till the end. Well, more than that before. But like even in her last month, a year into lactation, she was still producing about 3 gallons of milk. So they really produce a lot of milk. You're probably going to get that kind of 6 to 8 gallons of milk from them. Maybe not 6 to 8. probably 4 to 6, I would say. Kind of similar to Jerseys as far as their production goes, maybe a little bit more. And then butterfat is going to be a little less than Jerseys. It's probably closer to like a Guernsey, so probably about a 4%. I say that that Guernsey and brown Swiss cream lines are probably about the same, just that they have like some different properties to them. So brown Swiss are a really good choice if you're looking for a larger statured animal that's going to be a little bit hardier than like a Holstein. I would pick a brown Swiss absolutely over a Holstein any day, but they do take a lot of food because they're just this massive cow. They're ginormous, I like to think. So they're definitely one of the bigger cows out there. So breed of dairy cows absolutely isn't the end-all be-all, but it's a really great starting point to kind of get the traits that you want, and then search a little deeper and find the individuality of each cow within those breeds. So I think that crossbreeding is really awesome too, because it can help you to get some amazing traits and get all of those different things on your wish list. I never want to disregard all the work that has gone into making purebreds what they are, though, because there's been a lot of really amazing work that's gone into getting purebreds to the point that they are. So I want to acknowledge that, but I also think that as homesteaders, you know, we don't often need every single trait that a purebred is giving us, and so mixing in a few dual purpose things and mixing in a few, you know, different breeds is going to help us to meet our needs on our homesteads, which can be a really cool thing. So if someone came to me and said, I have 4 choices for a Holstein, a Jersey, a Guernsey, and a brown Swiss, which one should you pick? I would tell them to look at them all and see which one meets the most of their needs, because they're all really great options for family milk cows, but it just depends on what you need in your homestead, on your homestead, and with your family milk cow. So I hope this gives you a little bit of a starting point to see what breeds and why breeds are sort of important but not that important in choosing your family milk cow. And check out that blog post down below, because I give you a few more kind of details on the different things between breeds and stuff that might help you to make this decision. And I also link my free buying a milk cow masterclass there, which it's an email masterclass, so it sends you an email every couple of days with just some new information about things that you want to have kind of set up and think about before you buy your milk cow, and helps walk you through the buying process of what that would look like. So thank you guys for watching my channel. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, and come back next Monday, because I post a new video every Monday on all things cheese making and milk cows and dairy processing, and I would love to have you guys here. Okay, bye.